Der Keulen von Keulen Yosef ordered we should a shiur on an Indian of early Shabbos. I want to go and discuss two things. First of all, minhag Chabad. If there is some minhag Chabad about this, pro or con. And Bachal, what is the ganze Indian of Yodaven and Nishdaven early? And then go over some halachas, which is very, very important if a person does daven early, how to go about it. Now, the Alter Rebbe writes in Simon Reish Samach Zayin, Sif Bais, which is in the papers. So the Alter Rebbe Azoi. V'nahagin, the minhag is lahagdim tvelas arvis, yoismi moisachol. Friday night, we are mokדם to daven Kabbalah Shabbos and Ma'ariv earlier than during the weekdays. V'nochani, Alter Rebbe stresses, v'nochani, it's a good thing. Why? K'day lahagdim Kabbalah Shabbos b'chomal she'efsher. You have to be mokדם. Why is a good thing? Because we want to bring in Shabbos, the earlier the better. Rak is one Tanai, Shima Plaga Mincha Lamalo. Has to be Plaga Mincha Mala. Commissioners Bar, Simmer Reish Samach Aleph, Reish Samach Gimel. In Simmer Reish Samach Aleph, Reish Samach Gimel, is the Alter Rebbe explains that you could only be Mekabel Shabbos from Plag HaMincha. Plag HaMincha is an hour and a quarter before the Shkia. Machloikes, Mugabrum holds an hour and a half before Tzesek Chuvim, which comes out 3 minutes before the Zman. But according to the Alter Rebbe, which fastens, we are going from the Shkia, and also the Alter Rebbe Digru, it's the same Shita. So it's an hour and a quarter before Shkia Sachama, but it's not an hour and a quarter on the clock. It's an hour and a quarter Shkia Zmaniyas. It means you take the day from the Netzachama till the Shkia, you divide it in 12, and that's an hour. So sometimes an hour could be 50 minutes, sometimes an hour could be an hour and 10 minutes. So this Alter Rebbe says an hour and a quarter. The Alter Rebbe, you cannot be Mekabel Shabbos before Plag Mincha. If you Mekabel before Plag Mincha, it's null and void. That means if a lady, for instance, puts on candles, wants to be Mekabel Shabbos early, which you could, but has to be from Plag Mincha. If she put on candles, she lighted candles before Plag Mincha, she has to extinguish it and have to light again with a bracha. Because basically the whole thing was non-avoid. Plag Mincha is the time when a person can Mekabel on Shabbos. The Alter Rebbe over here, the minhag is you Mekabel Shabbos, but it has to be in Plag Mincha Lamalu. Commissioners Bar, Simmer Reish Samach Aleph, Reish Samach Gimel. That's the Zman of Neiris Shabbos and the Zman of Lukas Neiris. So the Alter Rebbe weiter. Even the people who are makbet to daven Ma'ariv all weekdays, but the Tzasek Chuvim, because you have to understand that Ashkenaz, they used to daven early every day, every night. That means in Trezi also, you go in Ba'ura Yasudas, I was once in Maine, and the minyan was way, way, way before the Shkia even. It was after Plag Mincha, but it was before the Shkia, during the weekdays. So the Alter Rebbe, even the people who are makbet not to daven early during the weekdays, Yuchali lahagdim Erev Shabbos. Erev Shabbos is something different. L'spal Plag Mincha lamalu kedivre Rebbe Yida she'umanu she'Plag Mincha v'aylich yilaylu l'nei Shabbos. According to Rebbe Yida, which Rebbe Yida says that from Plag Mincha is already considered laylu that you can daven Ma'ariv. You could do like this because we're going to see that we pass. The halacha could be also Rebbe Yida. It's not the Gemara is paskent. So the Alter Rebbe weiter. V'afshele pumim b'shar yumim mispal Mincha b'zmanahu. Even though that sometimes after, let's say half an hour after Plag Mincha, you are going to daven now Ma'ariv. Yesterday, you davened this time Mincha. How could it be? It's or Lailu or Yoyim. If you hold like Rebbe Yida, because let me just explain a minute. The machlokes of Rebbe Yida in the Chachumam, when it starts Lailu. Legaba Ma'ariv. Rebbe Yida holds, you could only daven Mincha till Plag Mincha. After Plag Mincha, you cannot daven Mincha anymore. But from Plag Mincha, you can daven Roine Ma'ariv. That means you can daven Mincha till Plag Mincha. After Plag Mincha is Zman Ma'ariv. The Chachumim hold, no. You can daven Mincha all the way till Tzasek Chuvim, whatever, or the Shkia, and from then you can daven Ma'ariv. What is the halacha? Zug the halacha gepasst in Shulchan Aruch. Let me quote you the Loshen. Mishes Shechanurach Machaber Semarai Shlamet Gimel. Zoek de Shechanurach, the Bes Yosef. Mishes Palat Tfilas Mincha Lachav Uv Shuz Emechza. Anybody who davened 6.5 hours, that means after 12, after half an hour after Chetzois. Yutzu is Makam in the mitzvah for Mincha. Vikir Zmana, Ikir Zmana is Mincha Kitana. So that means Mincha Gdoli is nicht alle Kitchila, aber Kapunam Yutzu, and you can daven Mincha. Mitet Shuz Elamalu, Ad Alaylu, till at night. Zman Mincha is when till Alaylu. Le Rabuna, El Rabbi Yidam, at Plage Mincha. Rabbi Yidam, the Zman for Mincha is only Plage Mincha. She saw Yid Alaf Shu Chusa Revia, that means an hour and a quarter before the Shkia. Zoekt hem in de Machaber, was sick, dat is een machloek tussen de bieden en de Rabbonen. How do you pasken? Zoek de pasken de Machaber, de Shechanurach, was sick, de Uvet Kamar Uvet, de Uvet Kamar Uvet. You could either way pass, you could pass like, there's no clear halacha, how Arbida of the Chachomam. You could do whatever you want. If you want to do like Rabbi, you want to do like Rabbi, that means till Plage Mincha, dav Mincha, from Plage Mincha, dav Navayrov, and you could do like a Chachomam till at night. But V'hi shiyas l'oilem b'chad minai. Zug the Machaber, what you have to do always the same. You can pick. You want to pick like Rebida, you always have to have mincha till Plage Mincha. Then you can have Ma'ariv after Plage Mincha. You cannot one day do like this, one day do like this. You want to decide like Rebona, go like Rebona. But you can't flip around. The Alter Rebbe doesn't pass like the Machaber over the head. The Alter Rebbe passes that you cannot do in the same day a Tartat Sasra. This is called Tartat Sasra. You cannot pick Rebida and the Chachuma. That means dav mincha after Plage Mincha and dav Ma'ariv before Laila. Because that you do not like them Chachumam, not like Rebida. Because if you dav mincha after Plage Mincha, you're not passing like Rebida or Chachumam. So automatically it's a problem. But you cannot have Ma'ariv then. Because it's not, if you pass like the Chachumam, you cannot have Ma'ariv. So Zug the Machaber says you have to pick. Always. The Alter Rebbe, according to other Achronim hold, no. You don't have to pick always, but in the same day cannot be. That means you cannot daven Friday afternoon, mincha after Plage Mincha, and take early Shabbos. If you want to take early Shabbos, you have to have mincha till Plage Mincha. That's what the Alter Rebbe paskin. This is what the Alter Rebbe says. Even though that sometimes after Plage Mincha, he's davening already mincha. So now it's a stira. It's either or you pass like Rebida, or you pass like the Chachomim. You cannot do one day like that, one day like the other. So the Alter Rebbe ein choshesh lezeh, but tfilas arvet shel Shabbos. We don't have this problem. The Gaba Shabbos. Sheyesh mitzvah lispal min b'yom shemois v'chol hakodesh. There's a mitzvah that you have to take early Shabbos. In one day you cannot make hatat the sasra. So the Alter Rebbe ein Tanai. If you want to do early Shabbos, one Tanai. Mincha has to be before Plage Mincha. Ma'ariv has to be after Plage Mincha. Then it's okay. There's one Tanai. Second Tanai is Gam Surch Zur Likas Krishma. You have to daven because even though the Chachumam says, even though Rebida says you can daven Ma'ariv after Plage Mincha, Krishma has to be at night. So you have to read again Ba Mincha. So the Alter Rebbe gets at night. So the Alter Rebbe gets noch options how you can do Legaba Krishma. Aber Akapunim, das is the kids that wurden the Alter Rebbe writes in Shechanurach. V'yufhem oisim. You can do early Shabbos. V'yufhem oisim. So what? So what?
Can Krishma be part of the Krishma, like Saturday after for bed?
Oh, this is the extra zach. Extra zach could it be be'etzem? Yeah. If a person will have in kavana to be mekayim mitzvah reisa, he could do that. He could have that. But we're going to see when we go to the halachos, we're going to see it's not so pashut. Mikradin is yoitza, but you don't rely till then. Let's first get to the Nakidah. So what do we take out from this halacha, from Alter Rebbe's halacha? The Alter Rebbe writes, it is a mitzvah, v'nam nochani, to daven early. And even though a person which is makpert, not to daven early during the weekdays, Friday something else, Friday night something else, because a mitzvah chalal kodesh. But again, cannot be mitartel the sasser. Has to have mincha Plage Mincha before Plage Mincha, daven after Mincha. Fine. That means like this. Who's wichtig Rosh bringen? So do a machloikes Rishonim. The Rosh, the Rambam, and this is how the Machaber and the Rum Paskins, as you could daven early you could daven early because mitzvah hoysim chalal kodesh. So I read guys, which is even before the Rishonim. He's the end of the Goinim. He holds no. He holds that if a person is always waiting till Tzesek Chuvim, then even there's no Erev Shabbos is not the same as, not different than weekdays. You always, if you wait always till Tzesek Chuvim, even Erev Shabbos you should also wait Erev Chuvim. The Alter Rebbe passed nicht wie Emel, passed the Mechaber in the Moon, the Mung Avruam, like that, which is the Rosh in the Rambam. It's not a problem. Okay, so what's the first over here, or the according to the Alter Rebbe, it's not a problem to have early. Now there are some Chassidim which want to say that we Chassidei Chabad do not do this minhag. Why do we not do this minhag? Because there's a tshuva of Alter Rebbe, which I quote over here, tshuva in Alter Rebbe, in the tshuvas, in the end of the Shulchan Aruch, there's tshuvas, over there, in the end of Sof Sima Zayin. Sima Zayin is, the whole Sima Zayin is regarding Sakinim Letushim. As we know, the Magid made a new kind of message, a messer, a kind of chalaf. And the Alter Rebbe pushed it very much. It's called Sakinim Letushim, how you sharpen the knife, which we didn't do it till then. And we did a new thing, which, by the way, if you're going to ask any elite, there was a big, heavy machuma against this shitta, against Sakinim Letushim from the Misnagdim. Today's day, there's no such a thing, other knives. All the knives in the whole world, Ashkenazim, Sfardim, Misnagdim, Chassidim, Litaim, everybody has Sakinim Letushim. The revolution was so successful that this became the establishment. Alter Rebbe had the whole tshiva on Sakinim Letushim. Why the Gewaldige Ma'ala? And he brings up an Akida. Maybe people will say, if we're going to start being frum on something, we are basically moitzi las on the people who did not use Sakinim Letushim, that basically that they did not eat kosher. This is the Alter Rebbe's concern. If we're going to start doing something new, we always have to be shloile hoitzi las al Rishonim. And we see it in Aluch a lot of times, that sometimes you say you don't do that because you're going to be moitzi las al Rishonim. So the Alter Rebbe had this issue. Could we be machman on this thing, and we're going to be moitzi las al Rishonim, that we cannot basically, you shouldn't be machman. So there's such thing as you don't be machman, moitzi las al Rishonim. So the Alter Rebbe ends the tshuva. We don't have to be choishish. We don't have to be choishish. Zug the Alter Rebbe the Lushan, I highlighted it. V'gam chalila lo nilahakped al Medina hamachmirim. We cannot be makped on the people who are machmer. V'choishishin das hapoiskim hamachmirim. And they are being choishish das hamachmirim that you should have Sakinim Letushim. Because we see a lot of things in halacha which the previous doiras did not do, and we are moisef. Not because we think that we are holier than them and they didn't do well, but it could always be machman an inyan and a chumrah. And the Alter Rebbe writes, if a doiris haloli, it gives two explanations how we see that we are machman more than we used to be. So the Alter Rebbe, if a doiris haloli, rubi k'mo rubi an hagim hachmi, we see a lot of times which the meaning we used to be lehukl, and we are machmer, k'mo chodosh, like chodosh, which basically Matung Alter Rebbe sagt, Matung Zik Machmas Chudash, which they didn't be Machmer. It fills Arvas Bismana, and also davening fills Arvas Bismana, ik hai gavna. So some want to learn from this Shiva, and Alter Rebbe writes, basically, that we see that you didn't daven early, it fills Arvas Bismana, so therefore you cannot daven Ma'ariv early. That's one of the rise from the people who are against that we should daven early. The answer to this is, the Alter Rebbe does not talk about Erev Shabbos. Erev Shabbos, he wrote in Shulchan Aruch that you could, v'nochen. He talks about the weekdays. As I mentioned before, in Ashkenaz, the minhag was to daven early Ma'ariv, because there was a big problem bringing them together, a minyan together, for Mincha and for Ma'ariv. You had time in between. So they made Mincha Ma'ariv together, they daven Mincha, right after the daven Ma'ariv. It was started the Sasra. As of today, in the modern Orthodox shuls, maybe even other, but I remember again, I was my Rabbona started in a shul which was called Bnei Yishin, which a modern Orthodox shul, basically, you know. And over there they daven Erev Shabbos every time 7:00. 7:00. Now, according to us, according to Shulchan Aruch, according to Alter Rebbe, 2:16, because it started the Sasra. But some Gata will sich zu verlassen. And Ashkenaz used to be like that. The Trimasadation, over there he was not Machmer Tart the Sasra. He writes that we stav Mincha, we stav Kabbalah Shabbos, we stav Ma'ariv, we used to eat a Seder, and we used to go to the water, have a walk after the Suda water, and the sun was still out. So in Ashkenaz hat man sich nicht gefühlt so, hat man Michael gewähnt. Kim the Alter Rebbe, it says in the Tshuva, you should know, today's day we are machma. We don't have mincha early during the weekdays. Why? Because in Zema machma, as we the Shechanur, the Ruch Shulchan Paskin, that's, can ich danken that the Sastra, we are machma in weekdays not to have early. But when it comes to Erev Shabbos, the Alter Rebbe doesn't talk about Erev Shabbos. Alter Rebbe, Erev Shabbos, there's a separate halacha, a mitzvah lohoisim achalal lakoidish, and Alter Rebbe writes, and the Alter Rebbe adds it. It's not in the Mechaber. It's not the Vanochan Adover. Is the Alter Rebbe himself added on Vanochan Adover. So that's the second thing which we have to remember as this main garnishing. That means the Tshuva of Alter Rebbe does not mean something for us because it means weekdays. It doesn't mean according to Shabbos. The third nikida is there's a Ksesa Shilachim, which he's one of the Lubavitcher Poiskim. Ksesa Shilachim Nasim Ein Zayin Siv Zayin, writes. We daven earlier than we do Bechol. That at least we should daven Ma'ariv after Tzasik Chuvim. But Evad, if you daven before Tzasik Chuvim, macht man Yotzig gewähnt. Elit Zizurich Lezuer, Krishma shall Tzasik Chuvim. Krishma has to be after Tzasik Chuvim, because again, you're not Yotzig Krishma if it's before Tzasik Chuvim. Another thing which they add on, which we're going to see soon in the halachas, which we saw in the halachas which I sent Friday. V'gam usel haschil lechel chatzishu. V'gam usel haschil. Also he adds on. V'gam usel haschil chutzishu sumer chatzasik chuvim. That you cannot start eating if you come home after Ma'ariv and it's half an hour for chatzasik chuvim. You cannot start make kiddush because the halacha is you cannot wash or make kiddush. You cannot start the suda within the half an hour of before you're in Krishma. So then you have to wait. So people say, we have a version which says you cannot be Mokדם before Tzasik Chuvim. But if you read the Badei HaShulchan, which is his footnotes, he writes over there, why shouldn't you be Makbet? Kivan she'anu mispalalim mincha be'erev Shabbos acha plaga mincha kechumim. Since we daven after plaga mincha kechumim, so therefore we cannot daven Ma'ariv before. If we don't daven before after Plaga Mincha, it's not a problem to daven. If you daven Mincha before Plaga Mincha, it's not a problem. So say man that the Ksasa Shilchim is not a sibba to be machmar.
Why do you say B'diavad it's okay?
What?
Why do you say B'diavad?
Because Be'evad, even if you have made Tartar Sasra, it's okay. That's the loch. Then there's the third thing which I didn't say, I only put it back on yesterday night. In the Sefer Shlichus Ka'alocha, he writes over there, Shlichus Ka'alocha is Shalom Beis Shochet give out. What? On what? Daven early? No. I didn't find anything about the Rebbe Rashab such a thing. He didn't daven early because he said a mime 2.5 hours before Tishan Kabbalah Shabbos and Shabbos. Okay, so the man of the Rebbe, they used to bring the students or how do you call it? Chabad Shabbos. One more. Pegisha. Used to bring Pegisha people to come to Crown Night. Should be a whole Shabbos with the Rebbe, be by the Verbringing for the Rebbe. The Rebbe used to talk one sikha regarding them. So they wanted to make, since it was summer, they wanted to make that they should daven early. They shouldn't daven in the 7th with the oilam. They should daven early. So the Rebbe answered like this. Harai be'erich the toichen. Harai ein ze minig Chabad kan. It's not the minig over here. What does that mean? Who's Pashas B'Pshat? So somebody wants to say, some people want to say, you see, the Rebbe said it's not our own minig. The Rebbe didn't mean that's the kid. I mean to say we're bringing in the oil. They should be together with us. On Shabbos, the whole Nekida was to be with the Rebbe, with the ganze oil to see Shabbos, Shabbos. And we don't have this minute to daven early. That means we daven a regular time. So you can make extra minute, which is the Ovgetin. What is the Nekida Sadvurim that you Ovgetin, that you bring the oil and the daven a separate minyan? So why does it matter? It could be washing hands also. You bring it into crowns, you want it to be a part of the oil, and you make a separate minyan early. That's the Nekida Sadvurim. So I also recall there that there's no clear Indian or the Sachen that you should daven early. Now, should you daven early? I didn't say you should daven early. Early. According to the Rizal, steht immer gedauert bis Mann. Sie kennen sein, als Tage, der Rabbaim haben sich geschwitzt so, weil sie haben getan alles weg per Rizal. The same as they didn't do, as we remember the Shiur which I said, that the people, they didn't do, the Rabbaim did not do First of all, because according to the real, it's a problem. So the Rabbi Imam is getting. So it's a aber zu sagen, as a Chabad, we cannot do this. We can't do this. Aber there's a Rizal, and that's why I personally will not do early Shabbos, because the Rizal zuk you should do the same. Same is also the Gru. Beer a Gru holds that you have to daven, you cannot daven early. So there's a Mukim Poskim not to daven early. And I'm not here to encourage the yes to daven early. It's only the kids that Wurim is there are people, Erev Shabbos, which is very hard for them. They have children. With your children, you make the Suda, 9:30 they finish this week, the Erev Shabbos. You make the Suda about 10 o'clock. Going home, you make Suda 10 o'clock. Children, small children, 10 o'clock, it's almost impossible to have a normal Suda. So what do you do? First of all, you put the children to sleep before. You give them, so it's either Shabbos. First of all, you have to make sure they have to do Kiddush, which most people do not realize. It's a mitzvah to mechanam zan achiev. A mitzvah achiev for chinuch. You have to make from 7 years old, 6 years old. You have to make Kiddush in Avdollah. If you put them to sleep early, you have to make Kiddush or in Avdollah. The same thing will be in Avdollah. What?
Even for girls, not just boys.
Even for girls. The Kiddush, the same thing. Okay, so they have to make Kiddush. So they have to make Kiddush. First of all, they have to make Kiddush. That you lose the whole Shabbos. Shabbos with a family, it's a große Sache. If you cannot do it, so people want to do it, and they have only issue of this Nekida. Inside Tchum Shulam Ba'is problem, and there's a lot of issues. Now, if a person feels he needs his wife, his children, he needs to do it, then I don't see a problem he should do it. Should you do it? Is there some minig Chabad that you do it? No, not a minig Chabad to do it. But Akapunam, so nicht ugefragt zu Zikir as a Mezach, and a person could daven early if this is the Te'elis in the Shabbos, the Te'elis in the Mishpucha, the Te'elis for the wife, the Te'elis for the Rangin for the Kinder, Achinach, for the Abunis. Yes, Mukim look. But you have to be makbid on all the halachos which we wrote in the Friday those, and Baruch Hashem AI is translated quite well. And those again, what? And here is very important. I want people should listen. In all the shul, because today's day 50, even more, over 50% of even Chassidish Yidden, today's day, which when I was a child, there was almost no early Shabbos minyanim. Nowadays, I would say even 60% of Chassidim, other Chassidim also, which daven early. Monsi, in the Borough Park, even in Williamsburg, a lot minyanim. It started because again, children comes late. And in Europe, it was always a normal thing because Europe, 11 o'clock is Shabbos. So there was always a chart. I made once a chart years ago for a shul right next to me, because again, the lady has to sin after Plag Mincha. But once the husband says Boichalu, almost B'Shliya Shabbos, it's Shabbos for him, and she becomes nigrer after him.
Even if she has a mother?
No, b'derech klal nicht. B'derech klal, if it's a nigrer, eichverir. B'derech klal is a nigger automatically.
Could she have kavuna?
Sie kennen kavuna nicht, aber es ist nicht so push lalucha, which is an extra sig in Hirchsnayder Shabbos Sharot. But nicht, I want to finish the Nikida. But my Kim toes, there is a window about 10, 15, 20 minutes. We have to make a chart. That means we have to know when the oilim davens mincha. It has to be before Plag Mincha. So they can only sin after Plag Mincha, but they have to sin before the minion comes to Povei Chalor. So it has to be a chart. 10 minutes. When that window they have to. If it's a time that if you see that it's a problem, that your wife, you know that your wife is not ready, then you should have kavana not to be a Makabel Shabbos till Baruchi. Once it comes to Baruchi, you cannot. There's no such thing. Once it comes to Baruchi, there's no such a thing that you should. Now he asked Graira, Riba Kikila the Poiskim hold that you cannot say I'm not going according to my husband. The Moshe wants to say Shas and Chag. The Moshe Feinstein Negris Moshe wants to be Shas and Chag. The wife does not have to go after the husband. But Bepashtos, according to most Poiskim, as I keep talking to Altarem, the wife is nigrer after the husband. So that means if the husband sees that it's getting late, he should make it 9 till Baruch. You win another few minutes.
At least you got it. You went 30 seconds.
Okay, so then you have to make sure your wife should be ready. And if not, don't daven early. And if not, don't make early Shabbos, because it's a very important thing. Because if you do Shabbos and she sins, it is a big problem. Another thing is, again, you have to make sure when you wash, it should be not in half an hour. That means right away come home and make Kiddush. Or if it comes to half an hour, you have to wait till Now another thing, if you started early, you could go on, you don't have to stop for Krishma. But it is kedai to stop in the middle of the Suda just to read Krishma, because you might forget. If a person has always in mind that Krishma Shalamita, that he's Makabal Mitzvah Daraisa, like he brought up, then you don't have this issue, because he will, if he goes to sleep before the Chatzos. But if not, it's kedai that you should stop. Because you're hischa beheter, but after you can, it's kedai that you should stop Ryan Krishma how long as it takes and not eat further. And one final thing is kedai also the Alter Rebbe says nicht kachiv, aber nuchen aduvet. Some poskim hold that you have to eat the kazais when it's already night. So make sure once it becomes night, you should eat the kazais. Most poskim even if you ate everything, you finish the seed that you mentioned before. But the Alter Rebbe writes, since there are poskim which the Tilazuv and all the hold that you should eat at least the kazais after at night, at least. You're still in the middle of the season. Oh, it's not. If you benched already, then you eat at least the mazonis. No, the Alter Rebbe warns that in the Seder, end of the Seder, before you bench, eat another kazais, because that's when it's at night. Usually,
you're not finishing before today.
Usually, why? Okay, then. Okay, if you don't finish at night, then okay. No, for taste it comes after Laila. So if you can do it, you can do it. But if a person could do it,
I'm saying if 9:20 ready bench everything, do you still have a mezanish or something after 10 o'clock?
Yeah, this is Alter Rebbe. As ik gedai, nuchen. Schiev, nuchen. The Alter Rebbe writes in Hilchos Berchsamuzen. The Alter Rebbe first the Alter Rebbe writes that you cannot be using mezanish only shalashidus. But in Hilchos Berchsamuzen there's a hagu from the Maril, Alter Rebbe's brother, a Sofium of the Alter Rebbe was Choyzer, and he holds that you could be Yotze also with Mazonis. So at least, if you want to be a Machman of this Nikida,